A white glow filled Xiao Yan's vision as he stood in a world of white light. There was not a single person beside him. Without knowing why, his memories vaguely became a little chaotic. What happened? Xiao Yan frowned and muttered to himself. A moment later, he suddenly lifted his head. There was a circular light ring a short distance from him. He hesitated for a moment before walking to the light ring, after which he stepped into it. Although Xiao Yan had only taken an instant to step into the light ring, it felt as though decades had passed. While he was feeling lost, his body suddenly shook. Lush green grassy plains replaced the white world in front of his eyes. This is Wasteland Ancient Region? Xiao Yan muttered in a lost manner as he stared at this enormous grassland. This place left him with a feeling familiarity even with his chaotic memory. Xiao Yan's body stood in the air. His eyes looked around him and noticed that the plain was empty. The entire area was permeated with a lonely aura. It appeared as though he was the only one who existed. Roar! However, an earth-shaking roar echoed around Xiao Yan while his eyes were roaming the land. A blood-colored beast tide galloped over the horizon like a scarlet-red line. Within a couple of blinks, it had appeared within 1,000 feet of him. A stench pounced toward him. Xiao Yan knit his brow as he glanced over these ferocious beasts coming from all directions. He lifted his hand, and an indescribably frightening energy created a destructive fluctuation. Following this fluctuation, all the ferocious beasts that entered 1,000-foot radius of the fluctuation turned into dust at this moment, regardless of how strong they were. Xiao Yan was a little absent-minded as he watched over half the beast tide disappear. He immediately looked at his hand in surprise. Such a strength was so great that it could not be described. It was as though this world could collapse beneath his will if he so desired. This is the strength of a dosheng? Xiao Yan muttered to himself. A wild joy surged into his eyes. He had pursued such strength for many years. Was he finally in possession of it? Roar! While Xiao Yan was immersed in this strength that could destroy the world with a lift of his hand, another roar that was filled with violence rang out. Countless of ferocious beasts stared at him with wide scarlet eyes as they charged at him. Hee hee! Xiao Yan strangely laughed at the attack of the beast tide. His hand ruthlessly pressed down, and 100,000-foot-long handprint immediately formed in the grassy plains. A terrifying ripple spread over the ground toward his surroundings in a circular form. Nothing in the beast tide could let out a miserable cry. The moment they touched this fluctuation, they turned into dust. An unimaginable number of ferocious beasts on the grassy plains below were completely annihilated as the palm fell. This kind of strength caused one to feel a fear that originated from within one's heart. An unusual emotion surfaced from deep within Xiao Yan's heart as he watched the 100,000-foot-long handprint appear on the ground. It caused him to involuntarily laugh at the sky. His laughter was like thunder that rumbled across the land. He had finally obtained such strength. Hall of Souls, Hun Clan, I intend to completely destroy all of you. A powerful murderous desire suddenly rose within Xiao Yan's heart as his loud laughter reverberated. The sky behind him suddenly became distorted, and a group of human figures was spat out in a miserable manner. Hun Yu! Xiao Yan was slightly startled as he looked at the group that had just appeared in the sky. He spat out the name of a man in his thoughts. A red glow flashed across his eyes as his hand ruthlessly grabbed at that group. Quick run! Hun Yu's expression changed upon seeing Xiao Yan. He hurriedly turned around and fled, but his body had just turned when he discovered that the space around them had been completely sealed. Before the do qi within his body could even surge, space itself seemed to have collapsed. A bang sounded as the space around them turned into a black hole, forcefully grinding Hun Yu's group into bloody flesh. This strength is enough for me to take revenge. Xiao randomly tossed the bloody flesh aside. A cold smile surfaced on his face. He turned around, stepped through empty space, and hurried out of the ancient wasteland region. Any ferocious beast that appeared within 10,000 feet of him was quickly pressed into a bloody and blurry ball of flesh by the pressure that spread across the sky. A ray of light flashed across the azure sky. Many low and deep explosions sounded wherever this light passed. Blood flowed like a river. The speed of this ray of light was extremely fast. Within less than 10 minutes, it had crossed the spacious ancient wasteland region and appeared on its border. Blood flowed like a river during this journey, and the blood-red color in Xiao eyes had become denser. However, he did not appear to have sensed the change. Instead, the smile on his face became stranger. Swoosh! A ray of light flashed and appeared on a mountain at the edge of the ancient wasteland region. Xiao body appeared. At this moment, both of his eyes were a blood red. A dense killing desire caused Xiao expression to become a little distorted. He looked at a town in the distance. It was the wasteland town. An expression of loss once again appeared on his distorted face when he saw this town. He seemed to vaguely detect that something was amiss, but he could tell what was wrong because of the chaotic memories in his mind. Buzz. After being at momentary loss, Xiao once again lifted his foot and attempted to fly into the distance. However, he had just lifted his foot when a slight buzzing sound was emitted from his storage ring and a cool air surged out of it. This air moved along Xiao arm and entered his head. Xiao body violently trembled when this clear, cool air entered him. The chaotic memories in his mind and some unknown extra thing immediately disappeared. The bloody redness in Xiao eyes also began to disappear with these things. The moment the final tendril of blood red disappeared, Xiao expression became gloomy. He slowly lifted his head and looked at the empty space in front of him. He said, "It is indeed worthy of being the Bodhisattva ancient tree since it is able to create such a real illusion. Moreover, those who are in it cannot detect it. Although this strength is powerful and is something that I have sought my whole life, it is unfortunately an illusion." Xiao gently lifted a fist and opened it apart. A jade green bead quietly lay in his hand. It was the Bodhisattva seed that Xiao had obtained back then. If not for this seed's aid in expelling that obscure thing in his mind, he would have continued to sink into this lifelike illusion. He finally understood why those Bansheng puppets existed. Those people had also been immersed in an illusion created by the Bodhisattva ancient tree and ended up losing their souls, turning into a walking corpse. The moment Xiao revealed the Bodhisattva seed, the entire sky began to distort. Finally, the scene emitted a bang and burst apart like a shattered mirror. Xiao was absent-minded when this place burst apart. His eyesight blurred. By the time he recovered, he discovered that he was in a space that was filled with a jade-green color. An ancient tree over 100 feet tall was stood as though it had existed since ancient times. This tree was an emerald green, appearing as though it had been carved from top-quality emerald. It emitted a shocking life force. This tree was the same as that 10,000-foot-tall Bodhisattva ancient tree in the outside world, but it appeared to have shrunk a countless number of times. Xiao eyes were gloomy as he looked at this small Bodhisattva ancient tree in front of him. That illusion, which had trapped him earlier, had definitely been created by this thing. The emerald green Bodhisattva ancient tree suddenly trembled as Xiao observed it. Many light clusters flew out of it and stopped in front of Xiao. These light clusters changed and various scenes were emitted from them. Xiao eyes swept over them and his expression quickly changed. The people inside were Sun Er, Hunyu, Jufeng, and the others who had entered the Bodhisattva ancient tree with him earlier. At this moment, all of them were trapped in their own illusion. What exactly are you planning to do? Xiao Yin furiously cried out. A heavenly flame quickly surged out of his body. This Bodhisattva ancient tree was too stank. That lifelike illusion could not be differentiated between real or fake. From the looks of those Bansheng puppets earlier, Xiao Yan's group was clearly not the first to have suffered this fate. The Bodhisattva ancient tree shook once again when it heard Xiao Yan's furious cry. A light cluster appeared. There was 100,000-foot-tall Bodhisattva ancient tree within the light cluster, but Xiao Yan's eyes did not focus on the ancient tree. Instead, they focused on the spot in front of the tree where a black-clothed human was standing in the air. An aura that seemed to reign supreme spread from the body of this person. Under this aura, even the 100,000-foot-tall Bodhisattva ancient tree appeared quite small. Do-di. Xiao Yan's eyes contained a dense shock. He stared intently at the black-clothed back. Although it was only an image, its aura still caused Xiao Yan's soul to tremble. This kind of feeling, who else could possess it other than an elite Do-di, which merely existed in ancient legends? The black figure in the light cluster stood in front of the 100,000-foot-tall Bodhisattva ancient tree. Suddenly, this figure began to attack the Bodhisattva ancient tree. The Bodhisattva ancient tree retaliated by slowly emitting wave after wave of monstrous energy. This entire sky crumbled because of this frightening exchange. Xiao Yan was startled as he watched the battle within the light cluster. He found it hard to believe that the Bodhisattva ancient tree had once battled with an elite Do-di. The figure within the cluster of light began to speed up before halting. Then the black figure was ruthlessly struck by a destructive force that erupted from outside the area visible within the cluster of light. The black figure's body and the entire area around it was blasted into smithereens. Hiss! Xiao Yan's heart violently pounded as he looked at that black figure, who had been blasted until nothing remained. That sudden attack from earlier had been unleashed by an elite Do-di, who was not weaker than the black-clothed Do-di. With the combined effort of the Bodhisattva ancient tree and another mysterious Do-di, that black-clothed Do-di was completely destroyed. 2 Do-di. The corner of Xiao Yan's eyes involuntarily twitched. He was able to witness 2 of these experts who only existed in legends. Although they were merely images, the aura from an ultimate expert caused Xiao Yan's soul to tremble. The image in the light cluster did not halt with the fall of the black-clothed Do-di. Traces of black air suddenly appeared. The air quickly charged into the Bodhisattva ancient tree the moment it appeared. With the entry of this air flow, the refreshing aura that radiated from the Bodhisattva ancient tree gained an obscure chill. Xiao Yan was startled as he watched the aura change. He fell deep into thought. The Bodhisattva ancient tree, after the black aura entered, it seemed to give off the same feeling as the Bodhisattva ancient tree he saw in the wasteland ancient region. Puff! The light slowly became dim before it agglomerated into an invisible matter that charged into Xiao Yan's head with lightning-like speed. Finally, this light turned into unusual information that disseminated apart. Xiao Yan shut his eyes and digested this unusual information flow. It was a long while later before he slowly opened his eyes as a sense of comprehension appeared in them. He had gained much knowledge from this information. The Bodhisattva ancient tree in front of him had existed for an unknown period of time, but one thing was certain: it had existed since prehistoric times. The thing that caused Xiao Yan to be surprised was that despite countless years of existence, it did not evolve and form its own intelligence. Perhaps it was because it had existed for too long, resulting in an incomplete intelligence. Regardless of the reason, this Bodhisattva ancient tree was not entirely intelligent. It could only function with the basic abilities of a spiritual object, like protecting itself or retaliating. The images that came from the cluster of light earlier were from an extremely distant era. There had once been a seriously injured elite Dodi who had attempted to forcefully remove the tree spirit of the Bodhisattva ancient tree to heal his injuries, but he ended up dying to his opponent and the Bodhisattva ancient tree. Of course, that black-clothed Dodi, who had been killed, had clearly caused the Bodhisattva ancient tree to suffer a ton of damage. One could understand the damage the Bodhisattva ancient tree suffered by comparing the 100,000-foot-tall in the light cluster to its 10,000-foot-tall size. Even though the Bodhisattva ancient tree had paid a heavy price, it did not completely eliminate the black-clothed Dodi, as one would imagine, because some of Dodi's negative emotions gathered together and invaded the Bodhisattva ancient tree the moment he was about to be killed. These so-called negative emotions gradually merged with the Bodhisattva ancient tree over a countless number of years, vaguely causing the simple spirit of the Bodhisattva ancient tree to begin to tilt to the dark and chilly side. In other words, over a long period of time, the Bodhisattva ancient tree was gradually eroded by the Dodi's negative emotions until it started to become a little evil. That illusion had been formed because of this evil. There had been an unknown number of experts who had lost themselves in the illusion over a countless number of years. If the familiar aura of Xiao Yan's Bodhisattva seed had not been emitted to wake the spirit that was deep within the Bodhisattva ancient tree, Xiao Yan would not have reached this place. If one were to describe the current Bodhisattva ancient tree in a simple way, it would be best to say that the tree's body possessed two separate spirits. One originally belonged to it, while the other was created from the negative emotions of that black-clothed Dodi. The spirit created from the Dodi tilted to evil. You wish to ask me to aid you in expelling that evil spirit? Xiao Yan looked at the ancient emerald tree across from as he inquired with a thought. Hua. The ancient tree quickly began to sway when it heard Xiao Yan's words, appearing as though it was nodding. Xiao Yan was a little speechless when he saw it sway. He replied, "You really think too highly of me. Those emotions have been left behind by an elite Dojd. I am unable to remove them." Xiao Yan was indeed speaking the truth. The negative emotions of an elite Dodi had even managed to shift something as strong as the Bodhisattva ancient tree onto the path of evil. What could his strength, which had just reached the 9th star of the Dozun class, do? He might end up bringing trouble to himself if he carelessly lured those damn negative emotions his way. He would certainly die if that happened. Hua hua. A light cluster once again appeared soon after Xiao Yan's words sounded. A wisp of flame surfaced in the cluster of light, and then a Bodhisattva seed materialized. The flame refined the Bodhisattva seed, and a refreshing aura appeared. This aura finally entered the body of the ancient tree. Following the entrance of this refreshing aura, the dark chill that spread through the Bodhisattva ancient tree became a little fainter. Use the Bodhisattva seed to expel those negative emotions? Xiao Yan was startled. He glanced at the Bodhisattva seed in his hand and asked out of uncertainty, "Just this one impure Bodhisattva ancient seed can help you?" Hua. The ancient tree shook and numerous green lights drifted out of its body. They stopped in front of Xiao Yan. The light gradually weakened, and Xiao Yan was flabbergasted because he had discovered that these light spots were all Bodhisattva seeds. Moreover, from the crystal luster they emitted, they were clearly many times more pure than the Bodhisattva seed in his hand. 1, 2, 3, 24. Xiao Yan's eyes swept over the green light spots. The corner of his mouth involuntarily twitched. Although the Bodhisattva seed was not as frightening as the Bodhisattva heart, it was still able to increase one's chances of successfully advancing to the Doshan class. Forget about the extremely high-quality Bodhisattva seeds. Even the impure Bodhisattva seed in his hand would be able to tempt a countless number of experts. However, over 20 of these Bodhisattva seeds, which were terribly rare in the outside world, had suddenly appeared in front of Xiao Yan at this moment. Even he felt the impulse to grab them and flee. Fortunately, Xiao Yin still retained his rational thoughts. Although this Bodhisattva ancient tree did not possess a complete spirit, all it took was only a little of its instinctive ability to easily kill him 100 times over. That lifelike illusion from earlier allowed Xiao Yin to understand just how frightening the Bodhisattva ancient tree was. It was fortunate that it did not possess a complete spirit. Otherwise, the number of experts on the Do-Chi continent who could fight it did not exceed 5. Using Bodhisattva seeds to expel the negative emotions. This is really too wasteful. Xiao Yin looked at the Bodhisattva seeds suspended in front of him. Although these did not belong him, he still felt an incomparable heartache when he was asked to use his heavenly flame to refine them. Hua hua. The Bodhisattva ancient tree swayed once again while Xiao Yin was feeling his heart ache. It seemed to be urging him on. Xiao Yin let out a bitter laugh upon seeing it sway. All he could do was nod. He spread his palm, and a cluster of purple-brown flames with a faint whiteness curled and rose. He randomly picked up a Bodhisattva seed with his hand and threw it into the flame. The interior of the Bodhisattva seed contained an extremely powerful energy. Even with the aid of the heavenly flame, it was still quite difficult to refine it. The refinement lasted for around an hour. Only then did the Bodhisattva seed turn into a crystal-clear liquid. Another half an hour passed, and the cluster of liquid transformed into a wisp of refreshing air that contained an emerald green color. This wisp of refreshing air seeped out of the flame before entering the jade-like body of the ancient tree. As this wisp of refreshing air poured into the Bodhisattva ancient tree, its body started to tremble. Soon after, an extremely faint black vapor quietly seeped out. It eventually turned into nothing and disappeared. Who? Xiao Yin sighed in relief upon seeing the black vapor. He quickly sat down. The difficulty involved in refining the Bodhisattva ancient tree had far exceeded his expectations. Even with his current ability, it was impossible for the Do-Chi within his body to continue the refinement process. I can't continue. I must rest for a moment. Xiao Yin wiped his perspiration away as he waved his hand at the Bodhisattva ancient tree and spoke. Hua hua. Seeing that Xiao Yin had ceased working, the Bodhisattva ancient tree immediately began to sway. A cluster of green light was quickly unleashed from its body. This light formed an ancient futon near the Bodhisattva ancient tree, after which the ancient tree extended a tree branch and carried Xiao Yin to the futon. Bang! Xiao Yin's body trembled the moment it touched the ancient futon. Wave after wave of frighteningly pure energy surged into Xiao Yin's body like floodwater. At this moment, all of his pores seemed to have suddenly blasted apart as a refreshing vapor slowly seeped in from the top of Xiao Yin's head. Crack, clash. Pure energy continuously poured into Xiao Yin's body like floodwater, causing a crackling sound to be emitted from his body. Under this crazy pouring in of energy, Xiao Yin sensed the Do-Chi in his body, which had been exhausted, completely recover. Moreover, the Do-Chi contained within his body seemed to be a little denser than it had been earlier. What a frightening Bodhisattva ancient tree! Xiao Yin involuntarily inhaled a breath of cool air when he sensed the change in his body. The energy within this Bodhisattva ancient tree was extremely pure. It did not require any refinement before transforming into Do-Chi that one could absorb. In other words, this Bodhisattva ancient tree was like an inexhaustible Do-Chi fountain. As long as it was around, one would not need to worry about exhausting one's Do-Chi. Of course, this was not the most frightening thing. The Bodhisattva ancient tree also seemed to contain an obscure expansionist ability. For example, the amount of Do-Chi that Xiao Yan's body could store was fixed, but the Bodhisattva ancient tree was able to faintly increase this fixed capacity. In other words, The Bodhisattva ancient tree had caused the Do Qi storage in his body to expand while aiding his recovery of Do Qi. This was an extremely powerful ability. If this capacity continued to increase, the so-called Dosheng bottleneck, otherwise known as the vast stream to cross to break through to the Dosheng class, would slowly disappear because of this gradual expansion. Rustle. While Xiao Yin was feeling shocked because of the mighty Do Qi within his body, the Bodhisattva ancient tree once again began to sway. It emitted a rustling sound, as it seemed to urge Xiao Yin to continue refining the Bodhisattva seeds. This bitter work is really worthwhile. Xiao Yin quietly praised this refinement in his heart. He no longer dared to delay any longer as he once again released his heavenly flame, and another Bodhisattva seed was thrown into it. He would naturally no longer be stingy with his Do Qi, and when his Do Qi was completely exhausted, the Bodhisattva ancient tree would help him replenish it. At the same time, it would also provide him with an additional rich reward. Under the urge of these tempting benefits, the tiredness from the refinement was naturally an inconsequential matter. The body of the current Xiao Yin was filled with a drive. Xiao Yin's palm turned into a cauldron. The fierce flame emitted a frighteningly high temperature. At the same time, the Do Qi within Xiao Yin's body disappeared at a shocking speed. With the aid of the Bodhisattva ancient tree, this Do Qi fountain, he could squander without any worry. Qi. A Bodhisattva seed turned into a wisp of refreshing air because of this wild refinement. It rose from the flame and entered the emerald green tree. At the same time, a tendril of black vapor once again disappeared. Rustle. The Bodhisattva ancient tree emitted a joyous cry as it sensed the black vapor gradually disappear. It swayed its branches as a mighty and pure energy continued to pour into Xiao Yan's body. Within the blink of an eye, the tired Xiao Yin was reinvigorated. Continue. Xiao Yin involuntarily laughed when he sensed that his body had once again been filled with an even stronger Do Qi. Before the Bodhisattva ancient tree could encourage him, he had grabbed a Bodhisattva seed and continued the refinement process. The space covered in a green color was filled with a great life force. There was no exact concept of time in this place. Xiao Yin could only clearly remember that the Bodhisattva ancient tree had aided him in the recovery of his Do Qi 28 times. The first batch of Bodhisattva ancient seed had been completely refined by him, but these Bodhisattva ancient seed did not completely remove the negative emotions within the Bodhisattva ancient tree. Hence, Xiao Yin was able to retain his calmness when dozens of Bodhisattva seeds once again flew out of the Bodhisattva ancient tree. After having refined so many Bodhisattva seeds, these rare objects, which would cause any outsider to go crazy, were regarded as something ordinary by Xiao Yin. In summary, Xiao Yin was numb. However, Xiao Yin had also made relatively large gains after refining so many Bodhisattva seeds. The expended Do Qi within his body was already many times greater than what it had been earlier. This kind of refinement continued. Xiao Yin did not request to rest. Instead, the refinement had become a routine. He picked up a Bodhisattva seed and refined it, after which a wisp of refreshing air entered the Bodhisattva ancient tree. Then, he picked up another Bodhisattva seed. This cycle repeated itself and did not stop for even a moment. This cycle continued for an unknown period of time. After a while, Xiao Yin extended his hand in an attempt to grab a Bodhisattva seed, but he only grasped empty air. It was then that he discovered that he had already refined all the Bodhisattva seeds in front of him. Xiao Yin shook his head as he grabbed at nothing. His eyes landed on the Bodhisattva ancient tree in front of him. He coincidentally managed to see a wisp of black vapor slowly seep out of the tree. It finally turned into nothing and vanished. Buzz. After the disappearance of this wisp of black vapor, the emerald Bodhisattva ancient tree suddenly emitted a buzzing sound. A green light surged before many glaring green rays erupted from the trees' bodies. They spread and caused the already rich life force present to grow denser. Has it been completely removed? Xiao Yin looked at the Bodhisattva ancient tree. At this moment, the Bodhisattva ancient tree was undoubtedly a much more emerald green than before. Moreover, the dark chill that had vaguely emanated from it also disappeared. The current Bodhisattva ancient tree gave one a peaceful, divine, and intelligent feeling of mystery. Rustle, rustle. One of the ancient tree branches was slowly extended. It was like a person's hand as it rubbed Xiao Yan's head. Xiao Yan could sense a joyous emotion from that tree branch. It is good that the negative emotions have been completely removed. Xiao Yan smiled. He also patted the Bodhisattva ancient tree's branch, after which a fatigue that originated from his soul suddenly surged, causing him to shut both of his eyes. Subsequently, his head also lowered. The exhaustion from refining the Bodhisattva seeds during this period of time was really too great. Although the Bodhisattva ancient tree had aided him in with his exhausted Do Qi, the tiredness of his soul could not be recovered as easily. Now that Xiao Yin had finally relaxed, the fatigue from his soul, which he had been suppressing, suddenly appeared. It caused Xiao Yin to descend into a slumber. Buzz buzz. An unusual sound was emitted from the Bodhisattva ancient tree when it saw Xiao Yin lower his head and descend into a slumber. An emerald light immediately erupted from within its body. The light turned into a countless number of hands that pulled at Xiao Yan's seated figure. The moment the two made contact, many ripples rose on the tree's body as Xiao Yin slowly merged with it. He became like a statue that sat at the center of the tree without moving. Soon after Xiao Yin was pulled into the Bodhisattva ancient tree, the Bodhisattva ancient tree began to swing its branches. Waves of unusual ripples spread apart, and many spatial holes were torn open. Numerous miserable figures were spat out. They were surprisingly the group that had entered the Bodhisattva ancient tree with Xiao Yin. Sun Er's group was also among them. Everyone's expression changed when they suddenly appeared in this strange place. Some fear lingered on many of their faces. They now understood that everything they had experienced earlier was an illusion. What a frightening Bodhisattva ancient tree! Even those as strong as Sun Er and Han Yu were unable to retain their calmness at this moment. They recalled the illusion from earlier and involuntarily felt a cold sweat form. If not for this sudden change, they would have remained in their illusions forever. Everyone gradually recovered. Only then did they slowly withdraw the shock within their hearts and began to observe this mysterious place, which was filled with pulsating life. Bodhisattva ancient tree? This place was not very big. Hence, the many pairs of eyes gathered on the jade-like ancient tree at the middle. A shocked voice was involuntarily spat out from the mouths of these people. After experiencing the illusion from earlier, they were extremely terrified of this ancient tree. There was nothing more miserable and tragic than dying in an illusion. Xiao Yin Ji. The eyes of everyone present focused on the Bodhisattva ancient tree. Soon after, Sun Er recognized a skinny figure within the tree trunk. Her face drastically changed. Xiao Yin. The remaining people saw what she saw while Sun Er's expression was changing. All of their expressions quickly experienced varying degrees of alterations. Sun Er, don't be reckless. This is perhaps a great opportunity. Gu Qingyang grabbed Sun Er and reminded her in a deep voice. Sun Er only woke up after hearing Gu Qingyang's words. She properly recalled her memories related to this Bodhisattva ancient tree. A moment later, she began to slowly nod. Based on the records of some ancient books, the Bodhisattva ancient tree possessed 3 treasures. The first was the Bodhisattva heart, the second was the Bodhisattva seed, and the third was to comprehend the nature of the world through the Bodhisattva ancient tree. It was not difficult to comprehend the first 2 treasures. Both treasures were tangible things owned by the Bodhisattva ancient tree. However, the third was a little vague and imaginary. The Bodhisattva ancient tree was called the knowledge reincarnation tree. It was rumored to have the mysterious effect that allowed one to experience 100 reincarnation. Those who had undergone such reincarnations were rumored to be able to step into the Do-D class. Although this was only a rumor, there were still a countless number of experts who had gone crazy because of this vague legend. A Do-D was the ultimate level that existed only in legends.